Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to the second episode of this series where we work together with Verta Collective and in collaboration with other industry experts to answer your commonly asked question on drums. In this second episode, we have George from Pantheon Percussion to talk with us about drum heads. Yeah, welcome George. Yay. Okay, so drum heads. So where shall we start? So many different kinds.
Yeah, so actually across the different brands, there are lots of products, all kinds of products, and they all market them under different names. They use units of measure that maybe we don't understand. Like for example, what the hell is mil?
Yeah. Milliliter?
No, it's not.
Oh, it's not?
No.
Oh, shit. Okay, so what is mil?
Mil. Mil is actually an American unit of measurement. Is when you do inches and feet.
Right.
Yeah, it's that same.
Along that scale.
Along that
scale. I see. I always thought that mil was 10 millimeter. I was like, 10 millimeter, man.
It's not mm.
Right. Yeah. I thought it was mm. Okay.
Yeah. So because you see, if you notice, all the drums that we use, right, we use inches. 14-inch drum and whatever. Because the drum set was invented in the US, right? Basically. So we follow the unit of measurement.
Right.
So 7 mil is, it's a unit of measure for the skins that we have. Yeah. So when people think of playing the drums, do they really play the drum? Or when you hit, what do you actually hit?
The head?
You hit the drum head. So technically, you're really playing the skins. So the skin is really one of the major determinants in the tone that you produce lah. And that's how you change the pitch because you tension the skin, right? And that's where the sound is generated from. Yeah. So the heads play an extremely important role. Picking the correct skin for your purpose is the most important first step. Because if not, you're going to be fighting against it to produce the sound that you want.
So what are the different kind of drum heads? So you talk about like the pitch of the drum head, right? So how does the different, because there's so many different kind of products on the market, double ply lah, and then you have those Kevlar lah, right?
So we go back to the kind of sound that you want, being able to describe the kind of sound that you want. And some people say they want a fat sound. So in order to get a fat sound, what are the ingredients in this mixer that you put together in order to help you easily
like
get
the
a
equation,
fat sound?
right?
Yeah. So what determines pitch is two things. The first one is mass. The bigger the mass, the lower the pitch will be. The thinner it is, the higher the pitch will be. Okay, that's number one, mass. And the second one is tension, which when we do tuning and tensioning, we are changing the tension of the head. So that's how we change the pitch.
Right.
Okay, so if we can get these two correct, choose the right match for the sound that you want to produce, then it's easy to get the sound. Yeah. Coming back to the fat example, you want a fat sound, you are describing something that is a lower sound. Would you choose a very thin head to try and get that fat sound?
Right, no.
This wrong choice of product, basically. So you should choose a thicker head and it's easier to get a fat sound. On top of that, then you use tuning techniques to get the pitch that you want.
Right. We compared a few different kind of drum heads. In this, we did a short comparison video. We did a comparison between Kevlar heads, single ply coated, double ply coated, and also just for fun, we did a clear head. So we've gone through the four different kind of tones. I think we can really hear the difference as we go on from a single ply clear to a coated to a double ply. There's really quite a bit of difference.
Yeah.
So how will you describe this difference?
So imagine the starting point. In this whole exercise about talking about skins, right, we're talking about mass. Okay. So remember, the lower the mass, the higher the pitch you can generate, and the higher the mass, the lower the pitch is going to be. So we begin with the thinnest of all which would be a clear
single ply.
Clear single ply head. So what you're expecting is bright attack.
Right.
Okay. Now then you go to the next step, which is a coated single ply. The coating on top of the skin actually increases the mass. That's why people say, oh, coated head sound warmer.
Right. Yeah.
Why they're saying warmer, it means it has a bit more mids and low frequencies because it is higher in mass.
Right.
You get me? So, okay, then we proceed on to 2-ply heads. Then you got 2-ply clear, 2-ply coated. And then we go to the territory of skins like the HD dry, which is specially designed to have a fat and dry sound, a thuddy, low attack. So it's 2-ply coated with a built-in kind of O-ring underneath,
muffling ring
plus holes which prevent the sound waves from hitting the high overtones at the edge.
Right.
Oh,
so that's what the holes are for.
Yeah, prevent the vibrations from getting to the edge.
Okay.
Yeah. So and then you get a super low fat sound. And these kinds of heads are really like pre-dampened kind of heads. So when you choose the correct skin, you actually don't, most of the time you don't even need to put
additional
moon gel or whatever.
Right, the dampening stuff, right?
Yeah. So for example, if you want to achieve the same thing as the HD dry, can I use a single ply coated? Can I do? I probably need to put 10 moon gel.
Right.
That would be silly. You get me? So to try and duplicate the same effect, it will make a lot more sense to choose a thicker head from the start.
I think also later we're going to talk a bit more about this muffling. I think we have a few different tools that later we can try on this snare. Normally during a workshop, right, what you will do is you will let the participants test out the pitch of the drums. So as we were discussing earlier, the thinner, the less mass, you will have a higher pitch.
Yes.
Right? So I think that's a pretty interesting experiment. You have about 10?
So
10
I would have a selection of So I would have a selection of heads, probably about 8 to 10 drum skins of different specifications,
specs, right?
And then I would get the class to arrange the skins in terms of pitch. So what you do is you hold the flash hook and then you just tap the middle, and then it has an inherent pitch in it.
Right.
Then you try and arrange it in terms of highest pitch or lowest pitch.
Right.
And then you look at the specs, it's very obvious.
Right.
Single ply clear all the way to
the really heavy duty stuff.
Heads. Then it's very obvious the relationship between mass and pitch.
Right. Yeah, so if you guys want to really have a hands-on to try this, you can check out Pantheon's Facebook and Instagram for his next workshop. So you guys can really try and hear all the different pitch. Because I think a lot of people are having the problems, because drum heads are not very cheap, right? Yeah, it's actually quite expensive, $10+ for one drum head.
So I actually spend, several $100 just to get props for these workshops.
Yeah, I remember first starting out, I knew that one of the things that I had to try was different kind of drum heads for the entire kit. And that's a very big problem, because when I think that was when I was 17, 18 years old.
Yeah.
So I had to save out the money, like $80, $100, right? Then I go and buy one set. Oh yeah, shit, that sounds like shit.
It's a guessing game, because when you go to the shop, right?
Exactly.
They're not going to say, hey, I take out and tap.
Correct.
They're not going to let you do that. So you just have to buy and try.
Exactly. And at that time, also not popular on YouTube. So you can't hear all the samples, all these kind of things.
Yeah. So it's interesting, in a workshop, you actually get to sample
all the different
about
heads.
10 different kinds of heads. That's an opportunity that you don't normally get. Unless you have
You
10 hits at home.
Unless you have a lot of money.
For fun. So I mean that's why it's a useful tool for people.
Right.
Then they can hear for themselves, hey, I never thought that the skin would have a pitch by itself.
Right. I think one of the things that people think about also, I think people generally have a generic idea. So for example, they buy a certain snare, right? Let's say for example, brass. They already have an idea in mind, like, okay, I want this brass sound. So
the starting point should be what's the sound I want, and then I pick the correct tool for the job.
Right.
You get me now? So it really it also depends on what kind of environment you're in. So for example, in a recording studio, you tend to need a very high dynamic level in order to get the tone out.
Right.
Which means you're gonna whack the snare really hard. You need to do that so that there's enough frequencies for the sound engineer to play with he can EQ. So you tend to need to choose a skin that gives you all of the above as much as possible. So if you have a skin that is very dead, the sound engineer doesn't actually have much to play with.
Much room to play with.
Yeah, so you actually in the studio, it may sound good to you here, but after you mic it out, it can sound like a cardboard box.
Right.
You know, so I found that a simple single ply coated head gives the engineer more room.
So other than the drum heads, there's quite a few different muffling products on the market, going from the really cheapo kind, like the DIY kind to the really expensive kind. I think we got quite a few range over here. So come, props time. Let's bring up some props.
Yeah, but the overall guiding principle behind dampening is that first you're interrupting the normal vibrations, and that's why it takes out certain overtones. If you put a moon gel type product on the spot, you're not going to have the same effect across the whole drum.
Right.
And the where you place the moon gel also has a significant difference on pitch. Okay, so for example, where's the typical spot that you put a dampening gel?
Near the edge.
Right, the edge, right? Why? Because you're taking out the high frequencies.
Right, the overtones.
The high overtone. But if you want to lower the pitch of your drum, you can actually migrate your gel more to the middle.
Right.
So the pitch kind of goes down.
So that's because it adds more weight.
The more you go to the middle, the more it acts like an additional mass rather than a dampening tool.
Right. So and this moon gel is I think one of our very popular products. But I think what a lot of people also do is they do this. So they will take the tape, right? This one you go all the jamming studio everybody have.
They take tissue paper and then
correct. So there's a couple of different versions to this, right? So one thing that I want to ask you, right, is see. So some of them what they will do is they will do this. So they do this like that.
But they put a full.
They put like that. Wow, like very cheap like that. Wow, then like that one.
Yeah.
So what is this for actually?
Personally, I think it doesn't do any. It has no practical function except for maybe easy to pull.
To cap and then to pull it out.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So what is dampening is actually the amount of tape in contact with the skin. Whatever is on top.
It doesn't really matter.
Function, yeah.
Right. So then after what some of them do is also they will take this tissue paper, right? And then they will put it here. So they will take and they will fold, right? And then they will put it like that. Yep, like that. I think this is some DIY DIY style-ish.
Right.
So how effective is this comparing to a moon gel?
The main difference is that it is less aesthetically pleasing.
Right. Okay. Because fundamentally it's the same thing.
It doesn't look pro.
Right. Because it adds, ultimately it's the mass, like we were discussing earlier, right?
Yeah.
How much mass you add and where you place it.
Yeah. And this is not reusable.
That tone. And this is not reusable, correct. That's why the jamming studio, they just put there and then
they leave it there forever,
But I think what they do is not so much for the tone, but is to control the noise. I think that's one of the reasons why.
So if you are thinking of using heavy dampening to reduce volume,
right,
you are trying to reduce the energy in the vibration.
Right.
That's heavy dampening, basically. So the energy comes from the vibration, and if you kind of dampen it down,
then it gets
the volume goes down.
Right. Okay. So then we have I think we range from the weight. So we start off with masking tape, masking tape with tissue, and then maybe moon gel. But we have this very interesting one, which is this is called snare weight. I think this is a relatively new product out in the market, right?
Couple of years.
Couple of years already. Shit, I very swaku. Yeah, the first time I saw the Verta using, I was like, oh my god, what is this?
Yeah.
That is pretty interesting. So, yeah, I think this is pretty interesting in the sense that it adds on to this weight, but it has this like little leather flap.
Inserts, yeah. And if you wanted a different amount of dampening, you change the inserts. This is a great product. Of course, it's a bit more pricey. No, it's not.
Actually,
it's very pricey,
yeah,
but it is totally repeatable. You know, it's a known quantity. When you bring it to any snare, you know that it's going to have this effect.
Right.
It's
so it has that
That's the
consistency,
yes.
that consistency. I think just now you also mentioned that you can change, right? So it has some versatility and flexibility in it. Right.
This is really a permanent kind of gadget product.
Right. And it looks very good.
And it won't melt in the sun like moon gel.
So one of the things that I think affects a lot of, I think we can briefly cover in this episode is on the topic of snare wires as well. I think in the last episode where we talk about different drum tones, we talked about like how snare wires normally like deeper snare, we will go for more strands, right? Because we want more sensitivity. So one of the things that we can explore is also what does this different materials do to the sound of the drums.
Okay, like, so if we're going to talk about snare wires, right? First of all, you got to choose the correct snare wire for your snare setup. So, for example, if you're playing a very deep drum, the only purpose for the resonant head, right, is to vibrate enough to make the snare wire buzz.
To trickle.
To tickle the bristle head,
right?
So now, if you had a very deep snare, what's going to happen is when you hit the top, by the time the energy is transferred to the bottom head, a lot of it is lost.
Lao hong already, yeah.
Yeah, so the snare becomes less sensitive.
Right.
You get me? So in order to make up for this loss of energy, you need a little more buzz. So
to
you
compensate.
need maybe like 42 strand, 30 strand wires on a very deep drum.
Yeah. So what about the different materials of the...
Okay, so in general, snare wires, I would classify them into two kinds. One is coated and one is uncoated. So the uncoated wires are usually made of high carbon German wire, they call it, right? And it's usually is drier and more articulate. That is, if someone doesn't want such a abrasive, bright sound, they would choose an uncoated wire.
Right.
Yeah, so typically the jazz people would like a drier wire.
Okay.
Yeah, there's more control.
Right.
Whereas the second kind of wire is what they call coated wire. So generally it looks like chrome plated.
Okay. Like look a bit fancy one.
Yeah, and it's shiny lah. Shiny wires. And the more coating you have on it, the brighter it's going to be. It's going to reflect more sound.
I see.
So if you're a rock drummer and you need snare wires that really cut through, you need to choose something bright.
So that's the use of the coating.
Yes, so you would choose a coated wire.
Right. So
for the extra brightness.
So on the topic of wires, right, I actually have this snare over here also. This is quite for me it was quite a rare product. I think you've seen this, I showed you this snare before, right? So you can
pretty amazing snare.
It is a pretty amazing snare, yeah. So we have this, which is right. I think like that easier to see. So we have this, which is this is a pretty strange snare wire setup. The first time I actually saw this setup, I was actually quite shocked. I've never seen this in my life before, actually. So this is what they call the Ludwig Super Sensitive throw-off, and they have this like special snare wire, super long. So how does this? What's the difference between this kind?
Okay, so the thinking behind this era of wires, this is really quite a vintage product, because the thinking of the time, this is before like our current day cheaper throw-offs. If they wanted to use this, a snare that can be used for both the bands as well as in the orchestra. So these drums, first of all, they need to have what they call a snare bed. Okay, a snare bed is a depression underneath the
longkang.
Yes, it's like a longkang. So that allows you the snare wire to have maximum contact with the skin. So instead of having a short snare wire and then you kind of pull it down, you have snare wires that extend all over, and then this entire snare assembly goes up and down together.
Right.
So you see in our modern snare drums, you kind of like tuck one side and it kind of pulls up on one side. But in this case, I would say that it's like superbly engineered. And the whole snare assembly, right?
Right. Yeah, and it's actually really very sensitive.
So you would get like super balanced snare drum sound.
Right.
You get me now? So the entire thing is moving. That's why you see you got this connecting rod in the middle.
Correct. Oh, right. I never realized. I never realized it has this connecting rod in the middle.
Yeah. So because the whole thing is moving.
I see. Okay.
So it's not like our snare is just one side, right? This is like the whole thing.
Right.
It is very sensitive, right?
It is very sensitive.
Super
yes,
sensitive.
correct.
That's
but
the purpose.
This thing very 左頂啦.
Yeah, it is. But because of the
of that,
excellent
of the yes,
that's the effect.
Yeah, correct. So speaking of heads and snare wire, one question that I think some people might ask is why always clear heads at the bottom? Can we put a coated head?
You can, but you will not be ideal because the only purpose for the bottom head is to vibrate. So the best way to vibrate is to have as little mass as possible.
Yeah.
So that would be
so it's more sensitive.
A thin, clear head.
Right.
The bottom head is usually 3 mils. If you want an extra sensitive one, then you will get 2 mils, which is really for high-end orchestral snares.
Yeah, that's why I think we also can see like most of the time when we buy the stock drums, the bottom head is really thin.
Yeah.
Because of that sensitivity.
Its only purpose is to make this snare wire buzz.
Right. Very good. I think we covered quite a lot of topics today regarding the head and then regarding the snare wires. So in summary, what we have learned today is this. Mass affects the pitch of the drum heads. The thicker or more plies the head has, the lower the pitch. The different types of drum heads coating also affects the mass. Dampeners removes overtones by disrupting vibrations. Always experiment with the placement of the dampeners, be it a moon gel or with masking tapes. Choose uncoated snare wires for a drier sound, coated snare wires for brighter sound. Get a clear or thin resonant or bottom head for more sensitivity. Alright, so after we have learned all of this, and remember, if you want a more detailed experience and you want to try out all the different kind of drum heads in person without spending a lot of money. In fact, it's free when you go over to the workshop, right? So remember to go over to Pantheon Percussion in the links below to check out when is their next workshop so you guys can go in and participate for free, right? So, and remember to like and subscribe. And the next episode, we are going to talk about, this one is the 重头戏. We are going to talk about how to tune a snare drum, right? Okay, so remember to check in back next week for the next episode. Boom, see you.